Welcome to our posts. Today we will see stories of Am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for pulling my daughter from a water park trip because her teacher made her stay with a kid she doesn't like? My daughter Bryn is going on a trip to a nearby water park with her class next week. She loves water and has been talking about it for months, so I was a bit thrown off when she came home crying a few days ago and told me she didn't want to go. I asked her why and she wouldn't tell me because she thought I'd think she's a bad person. When I finally coaxed it out of her, she said her teacher Ms. N has forced her to be the buddy of her classmate Ben for the entirety of the trip. She was to ride the bus with Ben to and from the trip, eat lunch with him, and go on all the rides with him instead of spending time with her friends. She then said nobody likes Ben because he whines whenever they have to do work and picks his nose and wipes boogers everywhere. I was horrified, not only because Ms. N had made Bryn do such a thing, but also because she had made her believe she was a bad person for not wanting to. Unfortunately, this wasn't my first experience with Ms. N, as she frequently used my soft-spoken, intelligent older daughter as a behavior buffer for the naughty boys until I threatened to report her to the superintendent. It's clear to me that Ms. N is still too comfortable with enforcing archaic gender roles on her kids and forcing girls to do unpaid emotional labor for the sake of the boys. I immediately sent Ms. N an email condemning her actions. She sent me back an email with a bunch of BS that basically ended with if Bryn goes on the trip, she has to be Ben's buddy. Fine. I informed her Bryn would not be attending then. I immediately booked VIP tickets the same day her class was going so she could still go to the park and see her friends. What happened next I wasn't expecting. Bryn is quite popular, so I have gotten to know a lot of the moms in her class. When I let them know what Ms. N did, some of them were so horrified that they also pulled their kids out of the trip. In total, 8 kids, out of a class of 20, are either not going or going with us. Today I got an email from Ms. N saying that because almost half of the class isn't going, they either have to raise the cost for the other students or not go at all. She practically begged me to let Bryn go and tell all the other parents to let their kids go, promising she wouldn't make Bryn do anything she didn't want to do. I told her she should have thought about that before she tried to make my daughter do her job. My husband said I was being a bit petty and that Ms. N clearly feels bad about what she did, and I should let Bryn go as I've already gotten my way. He asked me if I really wanted to deprive children of what they've been waiting for all year. The thing is, if this wasn't Ms. N's first offense I probably would have agreed, but she has a pattern of this type of behavior and hopefully this will put a stop to it. Plus, if she has to explain this to her superiors, I have receipts. Is my husband right? Or am I justified? Next story. Am I the a-hole for leaving a vacation I planned for my girlfriend after her friends came along? My girlfriend, Sarah, 29 years old, and I am 28 years old have been dating for 5 years, and I wanted to go on a vacation with her to celebrate. I planned the trip for several months, of course I shared my plans with her, and decided on skiing/snowboarding/other winter activities in CO. The activities seemed perfect, and I was looking forward to this for months because I wanted to propose to her at the end of the trip. 5 days before the trip, Sarah dropped the ball on me that she invited 2 of her friends to meet her there. I was upset because I wanted to spend time with Sarah for our anniversary. I feel like it was plain and clear that this was a trip for just us. Even though I expressed my concerns, Sarah insisted that her friends already made plans to come and won't back out. I decided to accept this because there was no way for me to force her friends to not come. I wish I fought more on this. I figured we could make some changes to our plans, and I would still be able to propose to her privately. Sarah essentially blew me off for her friends and we didn't get any private time. After 3 days of being in second place, I decided to leave the trip and head home. I told Sarah why I was leaving, and she was upset. She told her friends about my decision, and I was ganged up on. They said we were all having a great time. She thinks I'm being a jerk for making her pick between her friends and me, even though her friends weren't invited in the first place. I never had personal issues with her friends prior to this trip. I never made Sarah pick between me or her friends because everyone needs friends outside of a relationship. I'm at home now and thinking about everything. I have a day to myself before Sarah comes home, so at least I get to relax a bit. Sarah and her friends think I'm overreacting and think I ruined the trip. I think Sarah was disrespectful and rude to me by ruining the purpose of this trip and having her friends gang up on me. Am I the a-hole for leaving a vacation I planned for my girlfriend after her friends came along? Next story. Update: Am I the a-hole for leaving a vacation I planned for my girlfriend after her friends came along? I decided that I wanted to end this entire relationship. I packed my important belongings, ex-passport, clothes, and arranged with my best friend to crash at his apartment until I can find my own. Usually when small issues happen in a relationship, it ties into a bigger issue of that relationship. The main reason why I decided to break up is because I realized that her friends will always be closer to her than me. Sarah has favored her friends over me and blown off some of our plans for her friends more than once. I was lying to myself for years because I didn't want to face reality yet. I had hoped she would change, but this trip really opened my eyes that I will always be in third place to her. I expressed my feelings multiple times, and Sarah promised she would change, and she didn't. Sarah came home late yesterday. I said I have a lot to get off my chest and I want to get through my notes before she talks or tries to interrupt me. The first question I asked Sarah was how she thought the trip went. She said we all had fun and it was memorable. I shouldn't have to feel like the third wheel in my own relationship, especially on a trip that I planned. My next question was, why did you invite your friends in the first place? You knew this was an anniversary trip for US. She talked about the trip with her friends since the beginning, and they never been to CO. She thought it would be a good idea to allow them to come just so they can have fun in CO with us. I followed up with my lack of knowledge of her friends coming along until days before. It's one thing if they came and did their own activities. But it's another thing that every activity became a group activity. I signed up for a monogamous, not poly relationship. My last question was, did you know that I was going to propose to you? Sarah said she didn't know at all. The thought never occurred to Sarah that I was going to ask. She claimed that she wouldn't have invited her friends to come along if she knew, but I responded that it would ruin the surprise if I told you. Sarah begged me to stay with her and believes we can work everything out. She didn't want me to throw 5 years away after this one bad trip. I listened to her promises to change for years regarding her friends, but nothing happened. I ultimately left Sarah with this: it's clear that there isn't enough room in your heart for your boyfriend and your friends. As much as I love Sarah, I can't stay in a relationship where I'm not respected enough. I left Sarah in the house by herself and I drove off to my friend's place. I'll figure out how to get my name off the lease and I'll plan to get the rest of my belongings. As for the ring, I will return it this weekend. Next story. Am I the a-hole for taking my kids to my parents' house to sleep because my husband will not enforce the rules when his parents visit? We live 3 blocks away from my parents and they see our kids almost every day. Hey, husband's parents live a couple of states away and only see the kids a few times a year. It's easy when we go see them since we only visit when the kids are off school. But when they come see us, it is at random intervals through the year. Not a problem really, they are excellent grandparents. With one small exception. They think our rules go out the window when they visit. It's mean that we don't make the kids their favorite food every day. Why can't the kids watch TV with them before they do their chores and homework? Why do the kids have to be in bed so early? It drives me crazy that I'm the bad guy because my husband won't put his foot down, so I have to do it. They came last week. On Monday, as soon as dinner was over, they wanted the kids to pay attention to them. They wanted to take the kids to see Avatar. On a school night. My husband allowed it. Last straw. I told him that he knew that throwing the kids off their schedule screwed me over. So I gave him the choice of either enforcing our rules or I would. He said he would take care of it. Second night, there was a hockey game on. He wanted to watch it with our son who loves hockey. I reminded my husband that our son had chores to do and homework. He said it was just a hockey game. I told the kids to get their stuff. I took them and a change of clothes and their homework to my parents' house. My mom and dad will watch them and then take them to school in the morning. I went back home and they were waiting for me. I'm being a controlling and abusive person by denying them time with the kids. I'm not the only person allowed to make decisions regarding the kids. They came all this way to see them and I'm being a jerk by keeping them on a schedule. Fine. They are visiting for a couple of weeks. Wednesday after I picked up the kids from school and dropped them off at home with my in-laws. Then I went out for the first time in ages. I told my husband I would be out late and didn't want to wake anyone, so I would be at my parents' house. Did the same thing Thursday through tonight. My husband has been calling and texting and coming over to tell me I need to come home because the house is a disaster because his parents won't do anything. They are in vacation and they are there to see the kids, not clean up. The kids are having a fun time with no rules, and he has been contacted by the school because no homework was turned in on Thursday or Friday. I didn't answer those texts. I said I would be back after his parents left or he enforced the rules. He said I was taking it too far and that it was affecting his work. Honestly, tough crap. Next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my stepson out of the house for smoking weed? I'm in Canada. It is perfectly legal. My stepson, Sean, is 18 and he is in university. He lives with his dad and I so he can go to school in our city. His mom lives on an acreage about 40 kilometers north of town, so that would be quite the commute. I didn't really want him in my house, but my husband insisted and promised me that Sean would behave. He would clean up after himself and he would not cause me any problems. He isn't a bad kid. He does his chores and keeps to himself mostly. He had some trouble with staying up late and being disruptive when he got here last summer, but we got that sorted out. My husband and I have a 3-year-old daughter. Sean is friendly with her and has babysat her a few times. The problem is he smokes so much weed. I'm honestly surprised he isn't failing out of school. I personally don't care. Except we agreed he would smoke outside or in the garage. And he's been smoking up in his room. 3 problems. 1. My daughter doesn't need to get a contact high. 2. It stinks. 3. He has the window open so we are paying to heat up the house constantly. F that noise. I spoke with my husband and told him that Sean wasn't following the rules we had agreed to. He had one more chance, then he had to find somewhere else to live. Sean said he was sorry and he promised he would behave. He even showed me that he bought edibles so he wouldn't get his sister high, stink up the house, or need to open his window. It was fine for 2 weeks and then he did it again. So I kicked him out. I packed up his crap and took it all to his mom's place. And I had the lock codes changed. When he got home from school, he lost his crap. He said that I was being a controlling bee and that I didn't have any right to tell him what to do in his father's house. I laughed in his face. I told him that the only house his father ever bought is the one his mother lives in. His dad is my husband, but they are both living in my house. I guess he didn't know that and he started apologizing. I called him an Uber to take him to his mother. He didn't go and he called my husband instead. My husband made arrangements with his brother for Sean to move there. His mom drove all his belongings back into town and now he isn't my problem. Unfortunately for Sean, his uncle is completely against cannabis. So he can't have any there. And he is currently sleeping on a hide-a-bed. His dad, uncle, and himself are going to build him a room in the unfinished basement this weekend. My husband is on my side since Sean broke our agreement. His mother is salty about having to come into town. And Sean is begging me to let him come back. I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel or posts.